The street looks the same, mostly. Same cracked sidewalk where he used to run barefoot in summer. Same fire escape hanging from the building like broken teeth. Al Pacino stands under the streetlight, collar pulled up against the October wind, and stares at the third-floor window where his grandmother used to wait for him to come home from school. The building hasn't been painted in years. The brick shows through in patches, dark red bleeding through white that was never quite white to begin with. He remembers how his grandmother would stand at that window every afternoon at 3:15, her small frame silhouetted against the thin curtains, watching for him to turn the corner. She never missed a day. Even when she got sick, even when her legs swelled and standing hurt, she would be there. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like it. He pushes his hands deeper into his coat pockets. The street is empty now, past 11 on a Thursday night. Most of the shops have steel grates pulled down, spray paint spelling out names he doesn't recognize. But the corner grocery where his mother sent him for milk still has its lights on, the same yellow sign flickering like it did 40 years ago. A car turns the corner, headlights sweeping across his face before disappearing down the block. For a moment, he thinks about stepping back into the shadows, avoiding recognition. But nobody's looking for Al Pacino in the South Bronx at this hour. Here, he's just another man standing alone on a street corner, which is exactly what he used to be. The movie premiere ended 3 hours ago. Lincoln Center, cameras, interviewers asking the same questions they always ask. How did it feel to work with this director? What drew you to this character? What's next for Al Pacino? He answered them the way he always does. Careful words that reveal nothing. Eyes focused somewhere beyond their heads. Then he shook hands, signed programs, and walked to his car while his publicist made excuses about his early morning schedule. But instead of going home to his apartment on the Upper West Side, he drove here. He didn't plan it. His hands just turned the wheels south on the FDR drive, muscle memory pulling him towards something he couldn't name. Now he's standing where he stood as a child, and the distance feels infinite. The window on the third floor is dark. Different curtains now, heavy and drawn tight. Someone else's life happening behind that glass. Someone else's waiting. He wonders if they know who used to live there, if the landlord mentions it when showing the apartment. Probably not. Most people wouldn't care that a famous actor once climbed those stairs every day, book bag heavy on his shoulder, knowing his grandmother would have dinner waiting. He takes a step closer to the building. The entrance is the same, heavy door with peeling green paint and a broken buzzer system. He could probably get inside, explain who he is, ask to see the apartment. But the thought makes his chest tight. What'd he find there? Different wallpaper, different furniture, different lives. The past doesn't live in places. It lives in the distance between who you were and who you became. A police car crawls down the street, and he straightens, forces his shoulders back. The cops inside probably see a well-dressed man who doesn't belong here, someone lost or looking for trouble. They slow down, and he meets their eyes through the windshield. After a moment, they keep driving. Maybe they recognize him. Maybe they just see another person with nowhere to go. His phone buzzes against his chest. Text message, probably his assistant confirming tomorrow's schedule or his driver asking when to pick him up. He doesn't check it. Tomorrow will come whether he reads the message or not. The meetings, the script readings, the careful dance of being Al Pacino in rooms full of people who want something. The wind picks up, sending a plastic bag skittering across the pavement. It catches against his shoe, and he kicks it free, watches it tumble down the block toward the subway entrance. The same subway he took into Manhattan when he was 18, 21, 25, carrying dreams that felt heavier than they looked. He thought success would bring him home somehow, make the journey circular instead of linear. But fame doesn't move backward. It only carries you further from where you started. A light comes on in a first-floor window. Someone moving around inside, probably getting ready for bed or starting a late shift. Normal life continuing in the space where his childhood happened. The building doesn't remember him. The street doesn't miss him. The whole neighborhood has moved on without needing him to return. He thinks about his grandmother's hands, how they shook near the end but still held steady when she combed his hair before school. She never asked him to be famous. She only asked him to be careful, to come home safe, to remember where he came from. 2 out of 3 isn't bad, but the third one might be impossible. The last time he saw her, she was in the hospital bed, looking small against the white sheets. He had just finished filming Serpico, was tired and confused about who he was becoming, who he was supposed to be. She held his hand and told him she was proud, that she always knew he would do something special. But her eyes looked sad, like she was saying goodbye to more than just her life. He pulls out his phone, scrolls through the contacts until he finds his driver's number. But he doesn't call. Instead, he looks back up at the third-floor window and tries to remember the sound of his grandmother calling his name. Not Al Pacino, not the name everyone knows. His real name, the one she used when dinner was ready, when it was time to come inside, when the world was small enough to fit in 3 rooms and love was as simple as someone waiting by the window. Alfredo, she called him. Alfredo James Pacino, running up those stairs 2 at a time, because he was late for dinner, because he'd been playing stickball in the street until the sun went down. She would stand in the doorway, wooden spoon in one hand, dish towel in the other, pretending to be angry, but smiling with her eyes. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes and the cologne his grandfather wore on Sundays. Everything had a place. Everyone had a role. His grandmother cooked, his grandfather read the newspaper in his chair, his mother worked double shifts at the department store, and Alfredo did his homework at the kitchen table under the light that was too dim, but somehow always enough. He crosses the street now, stands directly in front of the building. Up close, he can see where new tenants have added window boxes, where someone painted the fire escape black instead of the rust red it used. Small changes that accumulate over time, erasing the place he knew without announcing themselves. The building is still here, but it's not the same building. Nothing stays exactly as you leave it. Not places, not people, not yourself. The doorway still smells faintly of cooking oil and old carpet. He remembers racing through this entrance after school, taking the stairs 3 at a time, because the elevator was always broken. His grandmother would hear his footsteps in the hall and have the door open before he reached it. She seemed to know everything before it happened. When he was hungry, when he was sad, when he needed someone to listen to him practice lines for the school play. That's when it started, really, the acting. Not in some grand theater or fancy drama class, but at the kitchen table with his grandmother as his audience. She would sit with her coffee growing cold, watching him become different people, watching him discover that he could slip out of himself and into someone else entirely. She never told him he was good. She just watched, and that was enough. The memory sits heavy in his chest as he stands in the doorway. He was 14 when he first realized he could disappear into a character completely, could become someone else so thoroughly that Alfredo Pacino ceased to exist for hours at a time. It was intoxicating, that escape. It felt like a superpower. He didn't understand, then, that once you learn to leave yourself behind, it becomes harder and harder to find your way back. A woman comes down the stairs, keys jingling, and stops when she sees him. Middle-aged, tired-looking, probably coming home from a late shift. She eyes him cautiously, takes in his expensive coat, his careful posture. He nods and steps aside to let her pass. She doesn't recognize him, or if she does, she doesn't care. Either way, she hurries past and disappears into the night. He climbs to the 2nd floor, then stops. The hallway is narrower than he remembered, the ceiling lower. Everything shrinks when you grow up, but this feels different. It feels like the building itself has retreated inward, become smaller and more guarded. The doors are painted different colors now, numbers changed or missing altogether. Mrs. Rodriguez from apartment 2B used to bake cookies on Sundays and share them with the whole floor. Mr. Castellano from 2C played opera records too loud and argued with his wife in rapid Italian. The sounds of life, messy and human and real. Now the hallway is silent. Whatever lives here keep to themselves, wrapped in their own small world. He wonders if any of them know about the boy who used to live upstairs, if his grandmother ever talked about her grandson who became an actor. Probably not. She was proud but private, the kind of woman who kept good news close to her chest like a secret she was saving for the right moment. He reaches the 3rd floor and stops in front of the door. The number is different now, painted in neat black digits where there used to be brass numbers that were always coming loose. He raises his hand to knock, then lets it fall. What would he say? Hello, I used to live here 50 years ago. Can I come in and remember what it felt like to be home? Instead, he just stands there, listening to the silence. Behind this door, his grandmother used to cook Sunday dinners that lasted for hours. The whole extended family would crowd around the table, talking over each other, arguing about politics and baseball, and whose turn it was to do dishes. His Uncle Frank would tell the same stories he'd been telling for 20 years. His cousin Salvatore would sneak cigarettes on the fire escape. His grandmother would move between the stove and the table, making sure everyone had enough to eat, making sure no one felt forgotten. Those dinners were loud and chaotic, and sometimes lasted until midnight. People would drift in and out, neighbors stopping by for coffee, friends staying for dessert. The apartment was the center of something larger than itself, a hub where people connected and belonged. Al Pacino was part of that web, essential to it, known by everyone not as a future famous person, but as Alfredo, Kate's grandson, the quiet boy who was good at voices and might do something with that talent someday. The door stays closed. The silence stretches. He presses his palm against the wood, feels the solid weight of it, imagines he can sense the life happening behind it. But it's not his life anymore. It belongs to someone else now, someone who probably doesn't know that this door once opened onto the center of the universe. He turns away, walks to the window at the end of the hall. It looks out over the courtyard where he used to play with the other kids from the building. The space is smaller than he remembered, filled now with dumpsters and air conditioning units. But he can still see where they used to play stickball, where they drew hopscotch squares in chalk that would wash away with the first rain. This is where he learned to be someone else for the first time. Not acting exactly, but pretending. Cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, elaborate games where they all became different people for hours at a time. He was good at it even then, could slip into a character and stay there until his mother called him home for dinner. The other kids always wanted him to be the villain because he was so convincing when he played bad guys. Maybe that should have been a warning. Maybe even then, some part of him was more comfortable being anyone other than himself. It felt safer somehow, more controllable. When you're playing a role, you know what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to feel. Real life was messier, more unpredictable. Real life required you to be yourself, and he was never quite sure who that was supposed to be. His breath fogs the window glass. He draws a small circle with his finger, then erases it. The courtyard stays empty, lit by a single security light that casts long shadows between the buildings. No children playing, no mothers calling from windows, no sounds of life spilling out into the night. Just silence and shadows and the weight of time that has passed without asking permission. The stairwell creaks as he descends. Someone has installed motion sensor lights that flicker on as he passes, then fade to darkness behind him. The building is trying to help him leave, guiding him toward the exit. But each step down feels like another layer of distance, another barrier between who he is now and who he used to be. On the first floor, he pauses at the mailboxes. Names he doesn't recognize, lives he knows nothing about. Martinez, Johnson, Williams, Kim. The building has become more diverse over the years, filled with people from places his grandmother never saw, speaking languages she never learned. Change isn't good or bad, it just is. But standing here, it feels like erasure. He pushes through the front door and steps back onto the sidewalk. The street hasn't changed much in the 15 minutes he was inside, but something feels different. Maybe it's just that he's seen the building from the inside now, confirmed that his childhood exists only in his memory. The physical space has moved on without him, become something else entirely. His car is parked under the streetlight, expensive and out of place among the modest vehicles lining the block. The driver's seat feels too big when he settles into it, too isolated. Through the windshield, he can see the building where he grew up, but it already looks different, more distant, like something from a movie he watched once, familiar but not quite real. He starts the engine, but doesn't put the car in gear. Instead, he sits there, hands on the steering wheel, looking up at the third-floor window. The curtains are still closed, the lights still off. Whoever lives there now is probably asleep, dreaming dreams that have nothing to do with the boy who used to live behind that same glass. The radio plays softly, some jazz station his driver usually has on. Miles Davis, maybe, or Coltrane. Music his grandfather would have called noise, but that somehow fits the moment. Improvisation, notes bending around each other, finding beauty in spaces between what's expected and what actually happens. Like life, maybe, like the distance between who you think you're going to become and who you actually turn out to be. A taxi crawls down the street, its off-duty light glowing yellow in the darkness. The driver doesn't look at him, doesn't slow down. Just another car passing through the night, carrying someone else toward their own version of home. Al Pacino watches until the taillights disappear around the corner, then shifts into drive. The streets are mostly empty at this hour. Traffic lights change from red to green and back again for no one in particular. He drives slowly, in no hurry to reach his destination because he's not entirely sure where he's going. The Upper West Side apartment waits for him, clean and expensive and perfectly appointed. But it doesn't feel like home any more than this neighborhood does. It's just another place where Al Pacino lives, another set where he performs the role of himself. At a red light, he looks at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The face that looks back is older than he expects, more lined, more tired. It's the face that appears on movie posters and magazine covers. The face that people recognize on the street, but doesn't feel like his face. It feels like a mask he's worn so long he's forgotten what's underneath. The light turns green, and he drives on. Tomorrow there will be meetings, phone calls, people who want to talk to Al Pacino about Al Pacino things. Scripts to consider, deals to negotiate, appearances to make. The machinery of fame will start up again, efficient and relentless, carrying him through another day of being the person everyone expects him to be. But tonight, driving through the empty streets of the city where he learned to disappear into other people, Al Pacino understands something he's been avoiding for years. Fame didn't take him away from home. He took himself away, step by step, role by role, until he became so good at being someone else that he forgot how to be himself. And now, 50 years later, he's standing outside the building where it all began, and there's no way back in. The city spreads out around him, millions of lights in millions of windows, each one hiding someone's version of home. But his window is dark now, occupied by strangers who don't know his name or care about his story. The past is a place you can visit, but not a place you can live. And Al Pacino, driving through the night toward an apartment that will never feel quite right, finally understands the weight of what he's lost and the impossibility of ever getting it back. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment with your thoughts on the video. I always enjoy reading your feedback.